Welcome to The Point. I'm your host, Anna Kasparian, and let's talk about gay people.
Gays.
An entire show dedicated to the struggle of the LGBT community, which I'm very excited about. And we're going to talk about, as always, 3 different topics. We're going to talk about gay activism and the success that they've enjoyed in the last decade. We're going to talk about the progress in the transgender community. And of course, we want to talk about pop culture and the role that it's played in actually pushing pro-gay thought process, pro-gay thought process. Now, I can't talk about this by myself, so we brought on an excellent panel to discuss this with me. Andrea Meyerson is the founder and director of Standout Productions, responsible for the award-winning comedy documentary series Laughing Matters. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We have Dave Rubin. He's the host of The Rubin Report, which is the hottest new show right here on the TYT network.
Incredible how that worked out.
I know. Super exciting. And last but certainly not least, Calpernia Addams. She is an actress, singer, musician, and tireless activist for the transgender community. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, let's get right to it. Our first point has to do with, progress within the gay community. It's kind of incredible when you see how much, public opinion has changed toward the gay community, and I think it had a lot to do with someone coming out last year. Let's take a look.
I have to tell you, as I said, I've been going through an evolution on this issue. I've always been adamant that gay and lesbian Americans should be treated fairly and equally. And that's why, in addition to everything we've done in this administration, rolling back Don't Ask, Don't Tell, so that outstanding Americans can serve our country, whether it's no longer defending the Defense Against Marriage Act, which tried to federalize what has historically been state law. I've stood on the side of broader equality for the LGBT community. Over the course of several years, as I talk to friends and family and neighbors, when I think about members of my own staff who are in incredibly committed monogamous relationships, same-sex relationships, who are raising kids together, at a certain point I've just concluded that for me personally, it is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
Now, everyone remembers that when Obama was campaigning, he said that he was in favor of civil unions. However, he did not come out in favor of same-sex marriage until Biden kind of slipped and said that Obama was, and then he made that clarification that you just saw. Now, Dave, are you buying it? Do you think that Obama is genuine in what he's saying, and has it made a difference?
I've seen that clip 1,000 times, and I love it because, first off, it's so human. Everything he said in there is human. It has nothing to do with fear. It has nothing to do with the other. It's just human and good. And the other part about that that's particularly good because he's the president is that we're so obsessed with flip-flopping all the time. Oh, you flip-flopped, you believe that 2 years ago. But he actually evolved in a way that just expanded rights. Nothing bad came out of this. There's this idea that somehow you allow gay marriage and that's going to hurt straight people's marriage, or you get rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell and that's going to affect the military. But none of these things, these are imaginary things that never happened. So I think it's pretty beautiful, and it's huge. It was actually a huge moment.
Calpernia, are you buying it? I mean, do you feel that this was an evolution? Do you see it as a flip-flop? Because I feel like this is something that he genuinely believed from the get-go, but he knew that it was super controversial at the time when he was campaigning for president. And so he didn't want to come out in favor of same-sex marriage. But then you look at the polls and you see things are changing a little bit, and then, of course, he becomes a little more comfortable. That was my interpretation. What about you?
Well, I mean, I'm really glad that this evolution is happening, but I think something that should be addressed, I don't know if I'm the only one who feels this, but there's this huge undercurrent of rage that these people are talking about our rights as human beings to live, to love, like all of these legal rights, which distills, way out on the edges to the president's endorsement of this or that. But I just feel the sense of rage that as I walk down the street, all these complacent people are just sort of disinterestedly discussing this as one of 1,000 points that are on television. I have a lot of anger over this, I think, and I don't know if I'm alone in that, but that's what I feel.
Do you feel like gay rights is being used by some politicians to push their agenda or push their, popularity within government?
It's only ever used. I don't think, you know, it's always money in politics. They care about a lot of things, but what they actually care about, I don't think we ever really know. We only hear what's necessary to accomplish what their larger agendas are.
You know, you said it earlier, but about Biden, you know, Biden was on Meet the Press 2 days before this. I think that was a Tuesday, and Biden was on Sunday, obviously. And he sort of slipped up, and then it created this like critical mass where Obama basically had to say it because he has so much backing from the gay community. Obviously, the media generally is for the gay community, and just sense is for the gay community. So sometimes they just have to do things that are politically expedient because that's what politics is.
But I will say this, that Obama is the first president that has ever included the LGBT community on such a great level. I mean, in his inauguration speech, he said, you know, equal rights for our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters. Now, he didn't include the trans community, and he got a letter from this adorable little trans girl. I don't know if you know about that. Yeah. Like, you know, I want to be included too, Mr. President, but nobody, you know, even President Clinton, who was great, and he was an advocate, but, you know, he implemented Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Well, why can't we tell, you know? So, I mean, that was like baby steps. Nobody, not one president, has done more for our community than Obama. He's, you know, I'm a fan.
I think that's a fair point, and if you look back at gay rights back in the day when Clinton was president, and, you know, some of the freedoms that gay individuals get to enjoy today, I mean, it's like night and day. That's not to say that there are huge, huge strides to make within the LGBT community, but, you know, I just want to give you guys some statistics that I really found fascinating, because in the last decade, we've seen a huge change with gay acceptance. There was a USA Today Gallup poll done back in 2006, and the question was, do you think marriages between same-sex couples should or should not be recognized by law as valid? And back in 2006, only 42% said should, and 56% said should not. Now, fast forward to 2012, and the numbers have completely flipped. About 53% said should, and 46% said should not. So this is really incredible because it shows you that there is a little bit of success within the gay community, and I want to discuss that a little bit. I want to discuss the strategy because I think that a lot of political activists can learn a lot from it. So Dave, let me start off with you. What is it about gay activism that's so successful? How do they get their message across?
You know, the most simple and base thing that a gay person can do to help the movement, if that's what you want to call it, is just coming out of the closet. Simple as that, because when you come out of the closet, then everyone in your family has to look at this differently. It really is that simple. Everyone that you know, well, oh, my friend is gay? I didn't realize he was gay. He's a person, he's a pretty good person, you know? So that, in and of itself, it's the most simple thing, and it's also the most powerful thing. And then, of course, there's all kinds of political games that need to be played, and I'm a firm believer that you have to always apply pressure, you know what I mean? Because it was the pressure of Biden's slip that caused Obama to do this so quickly. So you have to always apply pressure, but just being who you are is absolutely the most important thing.
Absolutely. Andrea, what do you think?
I agree. Come out. It is how we create change. And yeah, if you look at what I love about the way Ellen and Rosie both came out, and I know we might address this later, but the way they came out was the world fell in love with them. You know, really, they're just like out doing their thing, great performers. And then they came out, and there's pros and cons about that, because I work with a lot of people in the community, a lot of LGBT performers that are out from day one. And back in the day, which is why I made the films Laughing Matters, because these are comics that have been out for 20 years. When Ellen came out, it was like, oh, we have a lesbian comic, who knew? You know, and in the meantime, I've been producing lesbian comedians for a very long time who are extremely talented that would never have the opportunity to gain that level of fame because they were out.
No, I like that you mentioned lesbians, because I feel like there is a huge double standard within society when it comes to gay men and lesbians. For some reason or another, there's this acceptance of lesbians, but for some reason people want to reject gay men. And why is that? Where does that come from?
That's because our country is run by white straight men. I mean, you know, that have fantasies about two women. I mean,
but
seriously.
the lesbians aren't going to sleep with your ass. Like, it's not going to happen.
I know, but I think it has a little bit to do with that. I really, really do. I think that's, you know, it's all about, our country is still run predominantly by white straight men.
Yeah.
So they like women.
You know, especially in the comedy world that you're talking about. I mean, if you think about the comedians, the openly gay women, I mean, there are tons of them, and they're hugely successful between Ellen and Rosie and Wanda Sykes and Paula Poundstone. I mean, there's names, real names. And I would venture to say that you really can't name one hugely successful. You can say it's me, but you know, that's, you know. But you know what I mean? Like, there really isn't one hugely successful gay male comic, which is interesting because we're still fighting for civil rights, and that's what comedy actually is all about. So it's one of the last groups that still has something to fight for. And
also, gay men threaten the sexuality of heterosexual men, because in a gay man's gaze, the heterosexual man loses that power of the aggressor and becomes a sexual object. And men aren't used to being put into that position, I think. So lesbians don't threaten sort of their position in the gender hierarchy in the way that being put in the gaze of a male homosexual sounds so clinical. But yeah, I think that's a big issue why straight guys are so much more threatened by gay men.
And I think that that really comes from ignorance as well. I think a lot of the hatred that is geared toward the gay community has to do with ignorance. Now, obviously, you know, unfortunately in the United States, religion dominates politics just as much as money does. And I hate that religion dictates politics. But what can we do to educate people, even if they're religious, that being gay is not a choice, that it's something that you're born with, you can't change it. I mean, just recently I saw this video, it was like a spoken word video that was put together by this young lady, very religious young lady, and she said the most hateful things with like beautiful music playing in the background. You know, how do we convince people like that gay people are not threatening? They're not going to destroy the sanctity of marriage. They're not going to destroy your marriage or your sexuality.
I think that, I'm sorry.
The big problem is that they won't listen to science, especially if they're religion-based. And so if they've sort of thrown out science, it can be dumbfounding. But you know, we have the other venue of entertainment, I think, and personal relationships. So coming out and sort of, you know, bewitching them with our comedy, our music, our art. I think that's ways to get in there if they can't understand science.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
So, you know, our spiritual leaders, let's face it, are really brainwashing these people. I mean, it's a total brainwash. I saw the video you were talking about, and it's appalling that, I'm sorry, a 16-year-old young woman like that would not be full of hate unless that was taught to her. I just don't believe that's how we come into this world.
And ironically, she doesn't think she's full of hate.
Right.
She thinks she's being benevolent and helping people. And
this is brainwashing.
Yeah.
It's usually what they do, and they're being brainwashed by people who are pedophiles. It's sick. It's like really like it's a whole other issue.
It is a little twisted, right? To go around telling people like you're going to go to hell and burn forever because of your sexuality. I mean, that is one loving Christian right there.
Bringing up the point of science versus choice or whatever, who gives a shit, really? We're gay or we're straight, or we're bi or we're trans. Like, live and let live.
I totally
don't
agree.
judge people who are really religious, who really believe for themselves that if they sleep with somebody of the same sex, they're going to go to hell. I don't judge them. I completely disagree.
Yeah.
But I would never judge them, nor do I feel hatred towards them. It's their choice.
I think there's a misplaced something when you always focus on, well, born this way. Because then there's the implication that you were born with this defect, so now live with it. You know what I mean? As opposed to, yes, I believe that I was born gay, but it's a moot point. You know what I mean? Here I am, so I'm going to live the best life I can.
But then there are people that are born straight, and they have to live with that.
And I feel bad for them.
Well, my big problem with it, I'm so angry about it. I'm angry today.
You're the most pleasant, angry person I've ever met in my life.
Thank you. I'm Southern, so you don't feel it until later.
Oh.
But my problem is hypocrisy, and I think hypocrisy is the worst thing in the world, except when I do it. But you know, because they don't even follow their own rules. If you go through Leviticus or whatever, I grew up in a fundamentalist Christian cult. I saw people who were as close to what I would call a biblical Christian as I'm probably ever going to see. By the real standards of their own mythology, they are violating endless rules every day, and they're going to go to hell too, but they, you know, by their own mythology, they are also going to hell, but they never admit that, and that hypocrisy is just infuriating.
Maybe picking on the gay community is a little bit of a distraction from them. You know, it's kind of like, oh, I'm guilty of these sins that are mentioned in the Bible, so let me just pick on someone else. That way it'll seem like I'm like this holy person who's really living up to the expectations that my religion has for me.
Absolutely, and also the bringing of the religion into it. You know, the phrase that everyone uses is "thou shalt not sleep with a man as thou does a woman." I'm getting close there, right? Well, I don't sleep with a woman that way, so it's not a problem for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it just depends on how you read it.
And it's also fascinating that the most outspoken opponents of the gay community usually turn out to be gay. So that's always a little fascinating.
And you know, isn't really religion, like, doesn't God just teach love and not judging? And it is so hypocritical. It is just completely hypocritical, and it's sad because it really, you know, this is why young people commit suicide. It's because they sit there and they're full of guilt because they think they were born damaged and they're damaged goods, and it's horrible. It's got to stop. I mean, something's got to give here.
Yeah, you know, Bill Maher had a great line about Larry Craig, the senator from Idaho, who was caught in the bathroom toe tapping, and he said, you know, Larry Craig, the man, put Larry Craig, the politician, in the closet, and then he legislated to harm people who were exactly like himself. It's this never-ending.
It's projection.
And that's worse than the non-LGBT people to me, the ones of our own who are turncoats, you know, making it even harder for us. You know, that's worse. It's awful.
It is awful. And, you know, obviously this has been going on in the United States for quite some time, but now some of the religious leaders from the United States are going to countries like Uganda, and they're brainwashing the people there, so they pass laws that would literally execute individuals if they're gay. It's the most heinous thing that you could ever imagine, and you know, I'm glad that we have activists that are fighting to stop it. Now we got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the trans community. Not too many shows talk about that, but we're going to do it in detail, so stick around.
And speaking of brotherly love, Donnie Collins' insurance company said it would not pay for his female-to-male gender confirmation surgery.
I cried in front of an H&M in the middle of the street.
So his fraternity brothers started a fundraising campaign to help him pay for it.
It's a very different sort of campaign we're trying to run here.
So far, they've raised more than $17,000.
Because the words thank you just don't do it anymore.
Jenna Telakova.
This is Jenna Telakova, a 6'1" beauty from Vancouver, also the first transgendered contestant to ever compete in the Miss Universe Canada pageant.
I've always loved the Miss Universe pageant, and I wanted to compete, and so now it's happened, and I'm very excited.
At first, Jeremy and Catherine Mathis didn't think much of their son's behavior. Coy took his sister's pink blanket and shunned the car they gave him for Christmas.
We actually have it on video. She opened it, looked at it, and walked off. Like, that's not what I wanted at all.
Later, the Mathises learned their child had gender identity disorder. It's a condition in which someone identifies as the opposite gender. The parents decided to help Coy, now 6, live as a girl. And at school, the first grader wanted to use the girls' bathroom. But Coy's elementary school refused to allow the child to use the girls' bathroom. Coy's parents say using anything other than the girls' bathroom could stigmatize their child.
It just sets her up for bullying and harassment, and it's not fair, it's not right, and she needs to have the opportunity to go and use the girls' restroom like all the other girls.
Now, those are stories that were recently covered in U.S. media, and it's not something that you would have seen a decade ago. So it's great that we're now having a discussion about the trans community, although a lot of times these stories are, you know, considered very controversial. Now, Calpernia, I want to start off with you. Before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of this topic, I think it's really important to differentiate between transgender, transsexual, cross-dresser. A lot of people are very confused about what this all means.
Yeah, I think a big problem is that people assume that it's a monolithic community, that everyone has the same thing going on, the same goals, they come from the same place. Really, we have a lot in common in the sort of trans community with a lot of people just say trans with an asterisk, meaning all those different suffixes. But a lot of people disagree with this, but sort of a crib notes version. Transsexual usually refers to somebody who's taken a lot of medical steps to sort of align their body with their gender identity. Transgender can be like an umbrella term that's anybody crossing gender lines. And then there are things like cross-dressing, which is a paraphilia, where people get sexual arousal from, you know, adopting the clothing or accoutrement of the opposite gender.
And it could be a straight man who's a cross-dresser. He just gets a sexual arousal from doing so.
And trans stuff is about your gender identity, who you feel you are on the inside. Sexuality, which is the lesbian, gay, and bi part of the acronym, is about who you're attracted to. So I could have transitioned to female but still been attracted to women and become a lesbian, or someone could transition to male and date men, or, you know, there are endless combinations of who you are and who you're attracted to.
Do you feel that you know, the trans community is kind of the final frontier of LGBT acceptance, and if so, why is that?
Well, the reason why lesbian, gay, and bi rights matter to me as a trans woman is because the same prejudices that are used against lesbian, gay, and bi people are used against me too. When people hate on me, they don't say, you know, you trans, they say you faggot. And that it's, so by fixing the lesbian, gay, and bi issues, I think I'm also fixing the issues legally and societally that affect me. A lot of trans people can blend in the heterosexual community, so it might be easy to fade out sometimes, but I feel like it's important to join in and see it as a group issue.
You know, that was one of the successes of the gay community. They didn't try to isolate themselves from other causes. You know, they got involved with labor causes, they got involved with, you know, people that were rising up against poverty, and as a result, they were part of a community, and their message was, you know, they were able to spread their message far and wide, which is great. Dave, what do you think about this, you know, about society's acceptance or lack of acceptance for the trans community?
Yeah, well, you know, it's sometimes it's a joke a little bit in the gay community about how many letters are we going to throw in there. We got LGBTQI. I'm sure there's another one just since we've started this. I think basically the umbrella thing is good because we do share something that that straight people don't share, even if it's not necessarily sexual attraction or identity. What I think is interesting about this is, you know, if you watch the Golden Globes a couple weeks ago and Jodie Foster had her sort of half coming out, half retirement speech or whatever that was, it was interesting to me because she was so talking about her privacy in a way that only a gay person would. You know what I mean? She had to live with this secret for all these years that really at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It simply doesn't matter. And yet she was, her confusion and the oddness of the way she spoke about it was clearly born out of she wants the world to be better than it is, and that's what we all want. So I think it's kind of, we'll get there, you know, it just takes some time.
I definitely think we'll get there. I mean, we have seen some progress with the gay community. Unfortunately, I don't think we've seen nearly enough progress with the trans community. And what kind of strategies, Andrea, can the trans community, you know, utilize in order to get their message across as effectively as gay individuals?
Well, I really do consider the trans community part of the LGBT community. And what I find interesting, and I'll address your question then, what I find interesting is within our own community, sometimes there's a misunderstanding about what trans, you know, I run a very large lesbian organization in addition to filmmaking, and you know, it's like huge. So lesbians from all over come, and we do cultural and social events and travel, whatever. And a lot of trans women join us who identify as lesbian. And I have had so many lesbian friends ask me, well, if they like women, why did they bother transitioning, you know? And I'm like, don't you, like, we have to be educated within our own community to really, what Calpernia said, it is two separate issues. Who you love and who you identify as, it's two completely different things.
I mean, it's incredible. You can just ask anyone to put themselves in the shoes of someone who doesn't feel like they were born the right gender. I mean, I'm very, very, very feminine. And if I were born a male, I don't know how I would handle it. I would feel trapped in my own body, and that's what these individuals are feeling.
I've been on tour this last year with a movie called I Stand Corrected, and the subject of my documentary is a trans woman who happens to be a world-class virtuoso of the upright bass, and built her fame before as John Lydham, and now she's Jennifer Lydham. But it's just so interesting to me what I've learned by touring with her and outreaching to the trans communities. I feel so lucky. I am a lesbian. I love women. There's no doubt about that. And I was married to a man. I went that route had to figure it out my own way. But I feel so lucky that I was born in the right body, you know? And what trans people have to go to, if we don't love and accept, like, it's crazy. It's insane. They have to go through so much just to be their true selves. Like, why can't we just love them? And why I wanted to make the documentary about Jennifer is, frankly, I met her 5 years after she transitioned, and I just met this beautiful, happy, talented, beautiful woman. And all the trans films I had seen touring with my other films on the LGBT Film Festival circuit were always about the transition and the angst and all of that. What I wanted to show in my film was, this is why, you know, yeah, they have to go through the angst. They have to deal with the doctors, the family, the work, the partners, all that, and it's tough. But this is why we have to accept and allow that to happen, because this is the product of somebody who should have been happy living as her true self all her life. She had to wait 48 years to be her true self.
Now, Calpernia, I want to go back to you, because obviously there are a lot of different angles in the trans community that we really need to address, and one issue is healthcare. Now, it's interesting because, you know, very, very slowly we're starting to see some healthcare companies, some private insurers cover, you know, surgeries to change, you know, a man to a woman or a woman to a man. However, a lot of people are very close-minded about this because they consider this like an unnecessary surgery, even though it's already considered, you know, a gender identity issue. Why is that? And what can we do to change our healthcare programs?
Oh God, that's the big question. Yeah. But I think the root of it is that people are so uncomfortable with trans people, and that speaks, a lot of trans issues speak to women's issues too, which is why Eve Ensler and Jane Fonda got together with me and my business partner Andrea James, and we did a performance of the Vagina Monologues that spoke to how society punishes femininity often, and you can trace back through the history of humanity, and society especially punishes femininity in boys.
Definitely.
So, and that speaks to gay experience. If a gay boy is effeminate, then he gets punished by society. Especially for trans people, we're vilified. People, you know, without knowing it, ask, why would you give up male privilege? How could you? Why would you give that up? And, you know, those things are all roiling under the surface, so that when you get all the way out onto the edges of making laws and decisions about healthcare and such, those deeply embedded, you know, anger and disgust and rejection emotions are informing their supposed intellectual decisions on these bigger issues.
You know what's very interesting, though, what I always kind of laugh at this. If a transgender person can marry somebody of the opposite sex, and it's legal. So a trans person can marry, it's like, it's legal for, it's like, it's so whacked, really. It's crazy.
It really is.
But two people that are the same sex can't legally get married. But if you transition, you can marry that same person, and then it's legal.
Well, it just shows how many layers there are to this. You know, the trans issue, I actually think this is one place where the gay community could be much better to itself. You know, for example, all the time there's this idea that you're bi now, gay later. You know what I mean? That a lot of gay guys don't think that bisexuality exists. Except, who am I to tell you how you feel? You know what I mean? I want you to respect how I feel. So I would, you know, it's a two-way street, basically. So I think we have to be aware that it's still a learning curve. You know what I mean? If we're still struggling to say that bi people exist, well, that in a way is a lot more simple to accept than trans, which brings up a whole series of other issues.
I mean, it takes a significant amount of studying, because a lot of people are under the assumption that sexuality is a black and white issue, but in reality, you know, sexuality is on a spectrum, and people fall all over that spectrum. In fact, I remember doing a story a while ago about, you know, this guy who said that he wasn't gay, but he enjoys cuddling with his male friend. right? And he's not sexually interested in him. He just enjoys the affection of, you know, his male friends. So sexuality is very complex, and then you bring, you know, the trans community into it, and a lot of people are intimidated by it. They're scared by it. And so I guess my next question has to do with education. Anytime you mention talking about sexuality within our schools, people freak the hell out. They don't want to even think about it. In fact, that's the reason why Proposition 8 passed in California. You had Republicans and conservatives arguing that if we don't pass Proposition 8, then all of a sudden we're going to learn about gay people in schools. But is that really a bad thing? Shouldn't we be educating people about the LGBT community?
It's completely bonkers that if you were to teach about gay people, that you would turn people gay. I mean, this is actually, it's completely insane. No one, I just don't understand. Are straight people hanging on to straightness? You're straight. Are you hanging on to your straightness by such a tenuous thread that at the end of this conversation, you're going to be like, I kind of want to do it with a chick? I don't think so, but I could be wrong.
I've done only about like 128 stories on, you know, the gay community within like the last month. And I can tell you, I'm just in love with Jesus Luz today as I was like 5 years ago when I discovered his existence when he was dating Madonna. But, you know, you're totally right. I think people, it has to do with the lack of education. People don't understand that you can't turn people gay. You can't make someone want to become a girl if he was born a boy. It's just not the way that it works.
Well, I'll tell you what I think it is. I think they know that gay people are out there. They know that trans people are out there. Their tool is fear. They want to use fear to control those people and oppress them. And by teaching in the schools, they're not really afraid it's going to turn people gay. That may be what they say. They're afraid they're going to lose that ability to terrify and subjugate the gay people, the trans people that they know exist, into following their rules.
I have to tell you, though, that I believe younger people, the young people that I know that are in junior high and high school, they don't care. They don't care. Yeah. It's kind of like, okay, you're not going to teach it. It doesn't matter. They're learning it themselves. They have, it's so easy to come out now. It's so easy to come out. And most high schools, most schools have gay and straight alliances. It's not a big deal.
Well, that's true. That's one side of the coin. But you also have to keep in mind that a lot of gay kids are killing themselves because of the bullying.
Trust me. Trust me, I do. I mean, I know that. And this is, we live in California. And
we're in our own little liberal bubble, to be honest.
It's very, like you go to Iowa and wherever, I don't want to name, but there's states in the middle part of the country that, they feel like they have nowhere to go.
But you know what, that's also the catch-22 of having all these organizations like It Gets Better, for example, which obviously the intention is only for good and for people to accept who they are and that whole thing. However, the implication of it gets better is sort of putting the onus on you that somehow something's wrong already. And when that's so reinforced, and then you read all these stories about bullying and the suicides and all that, you're getting this constant mixed message that actually if you're okay with yourself, if you're 15 and you're gay or bi or trans and you're okay with yourself, well then something might be wrong with you because it gets better, you know? And so I think sometimes the intentions are good, but the actions don't always.
I think with straight young people, though, the acceptance of gay people is so much more prevalent. It doesn't mean it's easier for all young people to come out, but definitely I think young people, they may not teach it in the school, but they're learning it, and they have friends that are gay, and I just see a lot of acceptance with straight people, young straight people, much more than I ever experienced.
Absolutely. All right, we got to take one more quick break, but when we come back, a fun segment on pop culture and the role it's playing in gay acceptance. Stick around.
Why do I have to be so ashamed? I mean, why can't I just say the truth? I mean, be who I am. I'm 35 years old. I'm so afraid to tell people. I mean, Susan, I'm gay.
I'm leaving. I can't take any more of this.
Hello, lover.
Wrong way. Closet's in there.
Once you go Jack, you never go back.
All right, fine, I'll do it, okay? Tonight at dinner, I'll tell my mother I'm gay.
Pat, I would think after 30 years, it would be kind of liberating.
Oh, no, we're not telling her I'm 30.
Is that whole milk?
2%.
2%. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is ridiculous. We need to talk about the elephant in the room. I guess we should donate it somewhere.
All right, so obviously there have been a number of television shows, a number of musical artists like Lady Gaga that have really supported the gay community, and they've had an impact, they really have. And you know, Vice President Biden made the point that a lot of times pop culture educates people more on gay issues than our own educators do. And Andrea, what do you think about that? Do you think that that's true?
I do. I mean, that's where young people, young impressionable people go. All of America watches TV and movies. So without a doubt, and that Ellen, I have to say that Ellen scene was probably one of my all-time favorite moments in television. Mm-hmm. It was brilliant. That whole episode was great. And I made a comment earlier about, you know, she was in the closet for a long time, then came out. That's also a very important journey to take. It's a really good path to take, because all of America always did love Ellen. And you know, you come out and what, you don't love me now just because, I mean, I'm not sleeping with you, I'm not sleeping with your daughter, you know, like, what is the big deal? So I think it's great and I love it, even in the gay community, because I know, I've met so many women that the L word had such an impact on them when they just, it helped them come out. Yeah. Which, you know, we could say all sorts of things about the L word, good, bad, or otherwise, but yes, this is a really good medium to get our point across, to educate people that don't know what gays are really all about, that think of us as some sort of freaks, A, and B, to help other young people come out, or even older people come out.
I definitely see pop culture normalizing sexuality other than heterosexuality. But Dave, I'm very curious to see what you think about shows like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy and the way gay men are represented, because, you know, not all gay guys are like flamboyant and like, you know, super queeny. You know, so what are your thoughts? Like, do you ever get offended by those kinds of shows?
It's really, really tough because look, you want to see out people. So just on face value for that, it's great that they're out there. But yes, there is this bizarre acceptance, as we talked about a little earlier, that lesbians can sort of still do a series of things and really be who they are. And for some reason, especially in reality TV, the gay guys are still the sidekick or the assistant or the hairdresser or all the queer guy, you know, the Queer Eye guys, even though that's a couple of years ago. But so we, in that regard, we haven't changed that much. We're still on Bravo. We're still the extra thing next to the housewife, and so I think we can do a better job with that. But
Not Will and Grace, though. Will and Grace, he was an attorney and. So.
Right, but Will and Grace also has been off the air for 10 years. It's actually hard to believe that nothing, well, you know, Modern Family obviously has picked up a little bit. But when we were watching that, it was making me think that, I remember watching Rosie on The View, and she said something about her mother-in-law. And I thought, wow, that was incredible. I never heard a gay person say mother-in-law before. And I don't even know that she was technically married at the time, but she just went ahead and used the phrase, and I thought just that in itself was pretty great.
What do you think, Calpernia, about you know, pop culture's depiction of the trans community? I feel like there's been a lack of depiction, actually.
No, I think a really important point to make that you even can see in that montage a second ago, like, for example, RuPaul is amazing. I've met RuPaul. I worship all the strides that he has made, but RuPaul should never be used as a spokesperson for the transsexual community. He's an out gay man who dresses like a woman. And that speaks to a misperception a lot of the gay community has, that trans people are just the most feminine of gay men or the most butch of lesbians. And pop culture also gets that wrong so much. We're always either prostitutes, psychos, or punchlines in every movie, or the fourth P, poor thing, you know, it's the tragedy. We've moved up from the scary psycho killer in old movies like, you know, Silence of the Lambs and Psycho. Now we're sort of at the clown stage, I think. If you need an easy laugh, if you need, you know, a heart-tugging episode of Law and Order or something, you pull out the sad transsexual who's been murdered or beaten. It's really awful. There are very few honest portrayals of us. I did a dating show a few years ago called Trans-American Love Story that, you know, as silly as dating shows are, I think it was the first out transsexual dating show in the world, and I wish we could see more like that.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
TV, so the Transamerica was a great movie. You know, that was just an amazing movie that I thought did a really good job of portraying a trans woman.
Yeah, we got to work with Felicity Huffman on Transamerica, and they actually brought in a lot of trans people to be in the scenes with her, and she worked really hard to portray a certain trans woman in a certain journey. You know, not everybody's journey, but this stuff is out there. You know, it's building, it's coming, but since people look to pop culture to shape their attitudes so much, I'll be excited to see more and more good and less of the psycho killers.
I remember reading a really great column in the Daily Beast about the way Hollywood casts its actors. And a lot of times, if there's a role that has to do with a gay character, what they'll do is they'll take straight actors and they'll cast straight actors as gay actors. I mean, a perfect example of that is Brokeback Mountain. So, I mean, it's kind of strange because you're seeing some progress within pop culture. People are starting to really push the idea that, you know what, different types of sexuality is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. We shouldn't discriminate. But at the same time, some of these Hollywood executives are kind of against casting gay individuals.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting too because so many actors won't come out because they're afraid they'll never get that leading role playing opposite, you know, the opposite sex. But yet, they think nothing of taking a straight actor and having them play opposite the same sex. So there's double standard for sure.
I think it has something to do with a little bit of the ick factor related to sex, related to gay sex particularly, which is why, even though we've made all these strides, even on Modern Family, they really never talk about sex per se. You know, I think one of them has a fear of public displays of affection. I mean, that's an easy way, really, to deal with having them never kiss. You know, I think maybe they kissed once or something, but you would never see a gay comedian, for example, go on Letterman and talk about his sex life, but you'd see a straight comedian joke about it every night of the week.
All right, now I'm going to get a little uncomfortable, but I have to for the sake of this conversation. It's kind of interesting that, you know, in pornography, anal sex is such a popular, you know, type of pornography, and usually when it's a man and a woman, and you know, the man is having anal sex with a woman, it's acceptable. There's nothing wrong with it. But whenever you take two men and you consider them having anal sex, people get the ick factor from it. So why is that? Why are people so grossed out by that? And why is it that lesbian sex is something that people can fantasize about and they're so excited about? I mean, even considering the fact that these lesbians have absolutely no interest in fucking you. You know what I mean? It's incredible.
Well, I'm excited about lesbian sex.
Anyway, anal sex and pornography and straight pornography, I think, is about debasing the woman a lot of times. It's you know, not this is so clinical. It's not using the orifice that she might receive the most pleasure from. It's using, I can't believe I'm saying this on camera, but you know, it's really, I think it's about debasing and devaluing the woman in the porn. And in gay porn, the men are seeing a man get debased in their minds and devalued in that way, and it's profoundly disturbing. It's, again, challenging their masculinity and their gender identity.
For the record, I don't find it disturbing. But, you know, straight.
But, you know,
okay.
in straight porn, and they're always showing two women getting it on. They are so straight, these women. A clue is the nails, guys. If they have long nails, they're not lesbians. Notice. You can see.
Well,
who's the lesbian? Who's the straight woman?
Wow.
So that's
I don't bite my nails.
That's a really great point. So as a lesbian, when you watch lesbian porn, can you immediately like determine that it's two straight women that are faking it?
Well, let's assume I was a lesbian who did watch lesbian porn, and I'm not owning that. But let's say I was. There are lesbian porn companies that typically tend to hire lesbians. But if you just go get a straight porn film, and there's 2 women getting it on, those are always straight women. They are always straight women. So I don't know. Yeah.
Does that, now I'm asking you about your porn watching habits, but like, are you less interested in it if you kind of get the sense that they're straight and they're being like, you know, paid to pretend like they're lesbian?
If I was somebody who watched that, yes, I probably would be less interested.
See,
Again, I'm not owning it.
I think that's totally fascinating, though, and this shows the difference between the mind of a lesbian and the mind of a gay man, because there is so much porn in the gay world that is, you know, straight, what is it, straight for pay, or gay for pay, sorry. Straight for pay, that's something else altogether.
Who does
but
that?
Gay for pay, and gay guys love this idea that, oh, this guy is not like us, but, you know, for money, he's going to do this thing. So it's interesting to me that as a lesbian, that, in a way,
so
is
it's
a
more
turn.
titillating for gay guys? Like, titillating is an interesting word for this.
It's not that titillating
I
for
want
gay
to just
guys.
throw this out. This is weird since we're on the subject, but I can't tell you how many lesbian friends I have that like watching gay male porn. They really like, I don't know, just saying that. Not that that has anything to do with progressing our world and bettering ourselves and improving our rights. You know, it has nothing to do
I'm
with
sure
it.
there's a little bit in there.
But, you know, I digress.
All right. So what do you guys think about singers like Lady Gaga? Do you feel like she's genuine in her pro-gay message, or do you feel like she's kind of taken on the gay community as a way of becoming a successful artist?
Both. I think she is sincere, but without a doubt, she has a huge gay fan base, you know, and, you know, we're out there spending money and buying her music and going to her concerts, so, but I do think she is very open-minded sexually, you know, I don't think she has, I think she's probably bi, I don't know.
Oh,
I mean,
interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't slept with her, so I can't speak from personal experience. But I think she really does embrace the gay community. Without a doubt, I don't think that's, you know, false
And it's
at all.
sincere.
I think it's completely sincere.
I actually almost think it doesn't matter if it's sincere. I do tend to think with Lady Gaga that it is basically sincere, but in a way it doesn't matter. If her whole message is so pro-gay and has been so good for young people, that at the end of the day, if she really wasn't pro-gay and had somehow tricked us all to think she was and done so much good in the process, I can't really see a problem with that.
All right, final word. Do you have anything else to say about Lady Gaga?
I think she's really smart, because as a performer myself, I know that the gay community, the lesbian community will always love you no matter how old you get, no matter if you gain a little bit of weight or whatever. They're so loving and accepting, and I think if the rest of the world took a cue from that, we'd be a lot better off.
All right, I love this discussion. I really had a great time discussing it with you guys, and I want to make sure that our audience knows where to find you and where to see your work. So, Andrea Meyerson, please tell the audience a little more about yourself.
Well, as I said, I'm touring with a current a documentary that premiered last year called I Stand Corrected. You go to istandcorrectedmovie.com for upcoming screenings, and we have a big screening coming up on April 6th in Los Angeles, and we're touring all over the country still. And I just directed 2 short films that will be on the Film Festival circus. One's called Seamless, and one is called Rejoice.
Excellent. Dave Rubin.
Well, you can find me in several gay for pay videos on XTube, and also watching XTube. It's a whole situation. But I am the newest host here at the Young Turks, so youtube.com/Rubin Report, and well, we'll go from there.
All right, pleasure having you. And Calpernia Addams, please tell our audience more about yourself.
Well, you know, I'm a singer, dancer, actress, so cast me, somebody please. But go to calpernia.com, CALPERNIA, or Twitter/Calpernia, or Facebook/Calpernia. I'm everywhere. I'm putting together a jazz album right now, and this summer I'll be touring, playing acoustic music with a friend of mine, so check it out.
Very cool, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys know where to find me. I'm on the Young Turks Monday through Friday at youtube.com/TYT Live. We air live between 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. I'll see you next week with another great episode of The Point.